Well, good morning, Cougars. And this is Mr. Klein. And I'm going to take you on a little tour today about the junior year. We feel like it's important that we talk a little bit about the junior year because it is the most important year of school for you. And it's very important that you are prepared to venture in the last 2 years of high school into the career or the college that you want to get into. So what is it about grade 11 that we want to actually talk about today? Well, in a lot of respects, the 11th graders are like the middle child of a family. They're not the oldest, they're not the youngest, they're not the first to do something in the family, and they're not the babies. So they get a little bit pushed to the side, or they don't get all the attention in the world. But the reality is, first and foremost, that the 11th grade year is actually extraordinarily important, even though it doesn't culminate in graduation. And it requires a lot of guidance, even though you're not new at high school. We feel like you need to be as prepared as possible for the future. Sometimes, though, students get through their junior year and they're not so prepared. And they end up trying to apply to college or try to apply for careers, and they're frankly just not ready.
Society and literature. Good luck, Sean. Mr. Madison, the Industrial Revolution changed the face of the modern novel forever. Discuss, citing specific examples.
Okay. The Industrial Revolution to me is just like a story I know called The Puppy Who Lost His Way. The world was changing, and the puppy was getting bigger. So you see, the puppy was like industry, in that they were both lost in the woods. And nobody, especially the little boy, society, knew where to find them. Except that the puppy was a dog. But the industry, my friends, that was a revolution. Live up!
So the point is, don't be like Billy Madison. You need to work hard, not pretend like you know. I guess the point is, don't be like Billy Madison. Don't go into your junior year hoping that you can kind of BS your way through it, hoping that you might figure things out as they go along and not really take the time to be prepared. The reality is that if you try to get through junior year and you're not prepared for senior year, you're going to have a lot more work to do during your senior year than you're going to want to have to do, and you're not going to do it as well as you could. So you need to use this entire school year to really prepare yourself for what happens next. The reality is the junior year is an extraordinarily important, if not the most important year of high school. Here's why. Your grades, your involvement this year, your leadership this year, your planning this school year, and the finances that you're putting together with your parents are all going to dictate what happens 2, 3, 5 years down the road. It's going to significantly impact scholarships that you're eligible for. It's going to significantly impact how you can apply to colleges. It will impact the options and choices that you have in front of you and the decisions that you have to make. And ultimately, it's going to dictate how your adulthood begins. And we know that the trajectory is important there. You want to have a positive trajectory going forward, and being prepared is important. There's 4 key items that we're going to talk about today briefly, and that we'll expand upon throughout the year. The first key item to the junior year are, of course, your grades, and we'll talk about why they're so important in just a second. Secondly, you need to start thinking about the tests that you need to be taking in order to get into college, the SAT and the ACT. You need to understand what those involve and what you need to do to prepare for them now. Thirdly, you need to start exploring career options and college options. You do not have time to put off this important task. Junior year is when you need to begin doing this and doing it earnestly. Finally, you need to start building your resume so that you know what you want to talk about with college admissions directors and put on college essays. First, your grades. The reality is your grades this year are extraordinarily important. If your grades freshman year and sophomore year were not spectacular, that's extraordinarily important, even more important than students who had strong grades during freshman and sophomore year. Because what college admission directors are going to be looking for are trends. Are you going up or are you going down? They'll also be looking at what kind of challenges you face this year. According to the Princeton Review, the grades of this year are the ones that have the biggest impact on colleges. Let's talk to a college admissions director a little bit about the importance of junior year grades.
This question comes from Diana on Facebook. Is it true that colleges mostly look at grades from junior and senior year? What role do my grades for my first years of high school play? Well, yes and no. The reason why colleges really pay attention to grades from junior and senior year is because they are the most representative of who you are academically right now. The grades that you had in 9th grade and 10th grade are still really important because they start to show where you started from, what your interests were, and how they developed over the years. That being said, if you feel like you didn't do as well in 9th and 10th grade, junior year is a fantastic way to make up for it. Take courses that are interesting and challenging and do as well as you can. And write about how you made that difference happen in your application. Colleges really want to see an upward trend if possible. If something happened and there was a downward trend or there was a dip in your application and your grades came right back up, you want to address that in your application because colleges are going to wonder what happened here. And if you can explain that, you're going to give them much more comfort. So, yes, your grades from junior and senior year are very important. And remember, it's typically only first semester of senior year that colleges look at for admissions purposes. Other than that, you're going to hear back from your schools in March, and that's well before your final semester grades will be done for 12th grade. You must still do well, though. If you don't do well, you do risk getting your offer rescinded. So, yes, junior and senior year grades are important, but overall high school experience is also important. Look for trending, look for dips, look for anything that you need to explain, and make sure you give that explanation in your application.
Next, let's talk just briefly about the SAT and the ACT. Both of these standardized tests are tests that colleges use as part of the admissions process, and they are very important. It is highly recommended that if you are planning to go to college, that you take the PSAT on October 14th at the ELSC. It's only $20. It's a great way to prepare for the SAT, and it also allows you to compete for scholarships through the National Merit Scholarship Program. It's extraordinarily important that you get signed up for this when the letter comes home next week. If you're interested in taking the SAT as a means of getting into college. You can also take the SAT and the ACT during your junior year regular testing, and it is advised that you do that because you want to get an opportunity to take the actual test in the actual setting before you take it your senior year. And in some instances, students do better their junior year than they do when they take it their senior year. So it is. Next, let's talk about the SAT and the ACT just a little bit. Both of these tests are valuable, and colleges use them to allow students to matriculate to their universities or to the college. Students will have to take them if they want to go to college. You don't necessarily have to take both. One thing I'm going to recommend is if you're looking at taking the SAT, you should take the PSAT on October 14th. It's a very good way to prepare for the SAT. It's only $20, and it's a great way to compete for scholarships through the National Merit Scholarship Corporation. As advice, I would recommend that you do take either the SAT or the ACT or both of them during your junior year. Get a jump start on your senior year, get the opportunity to get the test under your belt and see what it's like. And you can begin practicing for these tests using the test websites, and there's also other organizations that offer practice. But for example, for the SAT, you can go to sat.collegeboard.org/practice, and they've got a lot of cool free resources that you can use, and they also have paid-for resources that you can use. One of the great things that they've added now is a full-length test that you can take online, and these tutorial videos from Khan Academy on preparing for the SAT. This is a brand new thing that they're offering, And it's extraordinarily important that you take a look at this, because this will prepare you for the redesigned SAT, which is coming very, very soon. So you have that. You also have the ACT website that has various resources as well. And the ACT website has resources that are both free and not free. Most of their online prep and their guides cost money, but you can go to the Preparing for the ACT booklet. That is free to download. And they also have sample test questions and tips. They also do their questions of the day that you can test yourself every day on. You want to make sure you read up on these tests to know exactly what they're all about. We'll go into a little bit more detail about them as we go along throughout the year. It's important that you explore throughout your junior year and answer some pretty kind of key questions. First, what do you want to do? Unfortunately, you've been asked that question probably too much, and the answer's kind of been, well, this, that, or the other thing. If you haven't done a job shadow yet, it's extraordinarily recommended that you do one. You need to think about what you want to do for a career. You may not have the complete answer yet, but you need to really start exploring that during your junior year. Take advantage of Workplace Learning Connection, job shadows, and other opportunities. Secondly, you need to think about what kind of education you want to pursue after you graduate from high school. You may be thinking about a 2-year college, a 4-year college. You may be unsure about which one you want to do. A lot of students will do 2 years and then go to a 4-year program. But you also need to be thinking about whether you want to go to a small school, a large school, a private school, a public school. You should be attending college fairs during your junior year, and you should be visiting campuses. The final question you need to ask yourself is this: what can I afford? Have you had a conversation with your parents about what they can contribute to your education financially? Have you looked at how much student loans cost in the long run? Have you looked at what repayment terms are and how much your monthly payment is going to be? You also need to begin very earnestly focusing on scholarships and what you can do to get free money to college. These are the questions that you need to answer during your junior year. Finally, we talk about your resume. No matter what your plans are, you need to start building a resume, because no matter what you do, you'll need to be able to prove to people what you're good at and what you have completed. Right now, what I'd like you to do, and pause the video after this question, is this. Write down an answer to this question. Why should a college accept me as a student? Think about your 30-second answer and pause the video. Allow students to write down those answers, because that's going to help you prepare your resume. Hopefully you've written down your 30-second pitch and you have an idea of why colleges should think about you. Think about those things that are missing right now in your description. We're going to look at how to build a resume. You're going to get a copy of this document, kind of an important document. It is a resume worksheet. This is not your resume itself. Do not hand this to prospective employers. What this is a document that helps guide you through that process. So we look at things like work experience, your activities in clubs, including leadership roles that you have in those clubs, volunteerism, awards and honors, and then some questions at the end for you to think about. For the remainder of today's advisory, I would like you to start looking at this, writing some things down, write down what you can remember, and begin using this as a worksheet to build your resume from. If you keep it in a nice binder with some data behind it, you might be able to keep track of things a lot better over the next 2 years, so you don't forget things that you'd want to include. Being prepared for your junior year is extraordinarily important, and it's your task. I wish you the very best of luck this year, and we will continue to support you through all of these processes. Thank you very much for your time, and you can begin working on your worksheet now. Thank you.